Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. This is Ayesha Aleem, and I'm very excited about our session today on statement of purpose. The way I'm looking at this session is I would like this to be very interactive. I know while there cannot be a two-way communication in terms of I wouldn't be able to hear you, but please feel free to participate through questions. Most of the sessions that I do, I request the attendees, you're taking out 1 hour of your time with me today. So please make the most use of it. Ask as many questions as you want. I'll ask questions as well. I would love the interaction. You can answer in the chat anonymously with your name, whatever you're comfortable with. And yes, let's get started. So the session today, in collaboration with your Education USA, will be on statement of purpose. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Let me start first by introducing myself. The agenda of today's workshop is going to be with how do we think about a statement of purpose? What is a statement of purpose? What are the different kinds of statement of purpose? What are the formal requirements that universities have? How do you cater to those requirements? And then strategies to writing a statement of purpose. I would like to end the session with a few examples as well of what classifies as a good statement of purpose versus an average one, and what are some of the tips that you can use to cater to the requirements of the universities. All right, let's start. So, in terms of who I am, I'm a Fulbright scholar. I went to Northwestern University with Fulbright, specifically doing a core program, but my degree was in integrated marketing communications. I also did a chain of degrees and courses with Kellogg on the MBA stream. I've worked as a messaging product partnerships manager for Meta. At the moment, I'm working with Uber in business development. In my free time, I'm a culinary enthusiast. So you see a few pictures. The one on the top right, that's from my graduation at Northwestern. The one on the left in the cricket stadium, that is me attending one of the matches. I think it was India-Pakistan in the Dubai Stadium. We won. That's why that's the big smile that you see on my face. And on the right side, it is one of my hobbies and passions. I'm a culinary enthusiast. I went to Le Cordon Bleu in between my work and degree break. I took a year off and I did that. And continuing that passion when I moved to the GCC about, I think, 6 years ago now. I did a PMP certified cake decorator. I have about 5 years across Uber, UK, in the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa. So that's pretty much all about me. And I think one of which is not present here, which I haven't put on the slide, one of the things that I absolutely love doing is spending my time with all of you guys here on these sessions, whether it's on statement of purpose, applications, the different sessions that I do, time management, negotiation skills. And yeah, today we talk about statement of purpose. Whatever experience that I've had, if I can help or contribute in any way, I would absolutely love to do that. And I really enjoy doing that. All right. Can you guys hear me all right? So you can respond in the chat if the video, the voice, the slides, everything is good. Thank you, Hamna. And I have a question for you guys. How important is the statement of purpose? Whether this is regarding your undergrad, grad degrees, any admission, how important do you think is statement of purpose? So type your answers away in the chat, and I have my chat open and I will look at your responses. So as you're typing your responses, my thoughts is when you're applying to university, you have your grades, you have your experience. If you're working professional, if you're applying for a grad school degree, then you would potentially have work experience. If not, then you would also have potentially internships, volunteer work, etc. And then you have your statement of purpose. Now, your statement of purpose is your impression that you are giving out to the university. So this is how they are going to perceive you. This is how they're going to form an opinion about you. So in the chat, Hamna says it gives an understanding of your future goals and aims. That's a very good one because it talks about what you've done, who you are, and what your future goals are, and sort of just building a story around it. Your past, what you aspire to do, and how you use that degree for your future, what your ambitions are. Then I have another one. I think SOP is the backbone in admissions process. Yes, that's actually quite apt. It is a very important ingredient because it brings together all different things that we talked about. Your past, present, future. Absolutely. It's a story. It's how you want the panel who's looking at the different applications to view you. Now, on average, in any universities, there are hundreds of thousands of applications coming in. Local applications, meaning if you're applying to the US, UK, the locals there, and then of course there are expats. All of them, with exceptional grades, passion, extracurricular activities, work experience, hobbies, etc. So your statement of purpose is your way. How do you differentiate? And also to have a control on the narrative of your story. Any other thoughts on how important do you think the statement of purpose is or what it is before we move on to the next slide? Okay. When should you start? Now, the next question for you guys is when should you start thinking about writing the statement of purpose? Because typically, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this question, typically, a lot of students, I coach students in my free time, and usually the deadline is 3 or 4 days from the application, whether it is applying through universities or through scholarship program, whether that's Fulbright for the purpose of this discussion. And right at the 11th hour, they're typing down their statement of purpose, they're putting things together. In terms of when, and I got a response in the chat, I think 3 months before more. So yes, like a significant amount of time before. So while there's no timeline specifically, but this is your narrative. This is the story and this is your perception. So you have to start thinking about what is it that you want the panel to know, what is the message that you want to be conveyed. So if you do that towards the end, that's just putting everything together. But if you give thought to it, you think about it, you think about the narrative, you can start building the story. Zen says at least a couple of months before the deadline. Yes, you can start thinking about it. Zen's right. You can start thinking about it. You can start jotting down ideas. There might be a number of drafts that you do. And then you reach to the final one that you're happy with and you want to share that. Now, why I say this and why this is important before we go into how you're writing it, so you can manage your time accordingly and give this the due time and importance that it requires. All right. Now to the actual crux. So let's look at what are the formal requirements. Now, please, before we start, I would say that you must check this with the universities you're applying. You must check the formal requirements with a scholarship program. But typically, there's one statement. In some cases, there could be two. For instance, with a Fulbright scholarship, there's a personal statement, there's research objectives, there are two separate essays that are required. In universities, it could differ as well. But typically in universities, there's one application and responses can be about it's approximately 2 pages, 250 to 750 words each. In general, a statement is 1 to 2 pages is a good one. I've also given you, because I've received questions, when you say 1 to 2 pages, what is the font size? What's the how much would that mean? So I've given you some guidance. Typically with a font size of 12 with 1 inch margin, it's 1 to 2 pages. Excuse me, you must read the instructions very carefully. And if there are no specific guidelines, you can always reach out to the universities. You can, reach out to the specific department If you're not getting a response, you can reach out to alumni of the university. And let's say you're applying, in my case, I'll use my university, you're applying to Northwestern University in literature. So I would say, okay, I reach out to the department, I understand. I will also see what other alumni went to that specific program in that department. And then I could ask them, what's your experience with the personal statement? What was the size? What did you write? What worked? What didn't work? So it just gives you like a nice guideline. You might get more information about the university as well this way. All right. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any comments? All right. Let's move on. Now, since we have a mix of audience here, I wanted to also talk about the difference between an SOP for master's and PhD. There's a slight difference. And even with undergrad, you first select a program. So the first thing you do is you say, okay, I want to go for XYZ program. Then once you've selected that, so let's take an example. So let's say I want to go for an integrated marketing communications program for my master's. The first thing I would recommend, even before you start with your SOP, you do your research. So you research on that program's courses. What are the professors? What are the papers published? What is that department known for? Is there a specific research that's going on there? So you do your research completely. Then, in terms of, and this is, specifically on the university, if there are multiple universities, then you say, okay, I'm applying to, let's say, 5 universities in this program. I will select the universities and then I will connect with the alumni with that universities. If I don't know anyone, I'll go on LinkedIn. People generally are very helpful. So you can also do cold calling, say that I'm applying to this university in this program. Can I have a coffee chat for 10, 15 minutes? Or can you, help me out with a few questions? You can maybe prepare a list of questions for the alumni to make it easier for them as well to respond. And that's how you progress. So I think the first 3 points are super critical, which is you select the program, you do your research on the program, then select the universities, connect with the alumni, and then you define your uniqueness. Now I'm going to pause here and I want to understand what would you mean by define your uniqueness? And can you give me examples of something that you think is unique in you that will help differentiate you from other peers? It can be any degree, it can be any hobby, it can be any passion. Let's see what your thinking around this is. Now, I see a lot of people have logged in. So, guys, I'm expecting some responses. We want to make this more interactive. All right. Rashid says, my confident communication. Okay. Any other points? Sadia, what do you think? I'm gonna start. Qasim, any thoughts? Sufyan, Huzaifa, Adnan. I want to understand, what do you guys think is your uniqueness? Ramesa responses, researches in my field at undergrad level. All right, as you guys, start typing, I will talk about, all right, we got another point, such as not speaking before understanding. So research skills, scientific writing is what Sumbul says. So I'm loving the answers. I'm loving the engagement. Please keep them coming. Keep this conversation flowing. Creativity, blogs. Okay, great. Now let's go, and as you're typing your responses, let's talk about what is your uniqueness, academic and personal. So uniqueness means something that will make you different than others. Now, for instance, if I say, Aisha likes hanging out with friends. Her hobby is hanging out with friends in the evening, watching movies, watching Netflix. Is that something that is unique? What do you guys think? Is that something that is unique about me? No, it's very generic. There's nothing that is special. If I say, and I'm applying, and if I say that I am a certified autism trainer and I volunteer 9 hours a week helping children with autistic disabilities or differently abled skills that are required and coach them. Is that a uniqueness? What do you guys think? It's unique because it is something that is very much something that I do or skill that I have. There might be other people doing the same as well, but this is something that I am, maybe you could be passionate about. Maybe it could be something that you have. So things like if I say I'm really good with, I think somebody mentioned blogs. If you've written blogs, so there needs to be something concrete that you have done. So if somebody says I'm a very good listener, that is great, but what demonstrates that? What is the evidence? If someone says, I'm a sports person, what do you have? What is the uniqueness there? If I play sports, if I play cricket with my friends, not really unique. Is there something you've done in that? If you are passionate about social work, have you volunteered in XYZ organization? So uniqueness in academic or personal are separate. In academic, it would be high achieving in XYZ, worked on a special project nobody had done, got did something which really stands out. In personal, it could be a hobby, it could be something that has outshined. Like you could say, I loved aerobics. I practiced aerobics, and then my passion for that made me an aerobics instructor. And now I help underprivileged people, giving them free classes. That is the kind of uniqueness that gets the attention of the examiner. You have to put your mind, you have to go in the mind of the panel that is evaluating your essays and understand that there are applications that are coming from across the globe with people with talents, with skills. How do you differentiate? So I see that there is a lot of engagement on the chat. I will switch to that. Rabia had a very good question. How to find our uniqueness in short time? Any practical tip? So, Rabia, that's a good question. So uniqueness is, what is it that you've done or that you do that makes Rabia Rabia? So in personal, for instance, do you do volunteer work? Have you excelled in anything? Do you play musical instrument? Is it art? Is it um, any other hobbies that you have? That is sort of your uniqueness, something that you've done and you built on it, right? So when you're applying to universities, you also build, students build on their extracurricular, they build on their volunteer work, they build on their professional experience. Now, if that is something that you've not done till now, but you still have, let's say, a year or some time, maybe it's good to start thinking about how or what do you want to highlight. Maybe there's something that you can do now, start up a volunteer organization, anything that you're passionate about, but you have to build on it. I hope that answers the question. But if, let's say, your application or is due in the next 3 months, then of course, according to that timeline, you see what is it that you can do. Can we write about our internship or voluntary work that we've done before for the welfare? Yes, of course, you can write about that. You can highlight that. But always remember, when you talk about volunteer work or internship, always link that. If you've done X, Y, Z, what was the thinking behind it? Why did you do that? So there could be a thinking that I was passionate about. Let's say I'll take the example of autism. I was passionate about autism because it did not, in Pakistan, when I was doing this, it didn't really have awareness. People didn't know what autism was back in the day. Like I'm talking about 5, 10 years ago. A, they didn't know what it was. B, a lot of people were going undiagnosed. C, they didn't know that this is something that can be managed with treatment. So for me, that was the motivation. And if it's managed, people can live very normal, prospering lives. So that was my intention behind that. I did that. And what was the impact result? How many people was I able to create the awareness in whatever sphere or dynamic that I was hoping or aiming to achieve? So have that three-layer lens. Why? What did you actually do? What was the result? And was there any learning from it? So sometimes I recommend when you're thinking about this to use the star approach, right? What was the current situation? What was the task? What was the action that you take? What was the result? And then you can add another layer, which is your learnings. You know, if given a chance, I could do this better. It always shows the level of maturity if you understand, you know, from a full affair. All right, we have another question. Sumbul asks, can we write about our short courses? Sumbul, please elaborate on this. Do you mean short courses as in short courses you've taken at universities, or short courses just separately to elevate experience or self-development? Because if you've done any courses that has made an impact, always think from a lens of what is unique about this. If I've taken a short course in drama that nobody else has taken, that would be very different than if I've taken a short course in math. Or if I've done that, what is the added benefit? What about that course differentiates it from others who've taken, you know, other courses? Or what is the impact? So always have these two layers of lens when you're thinking about what you want to highlight. All right, we have another question. Is it a uniqueness to connect international values or cultural elements to local ones, such as Pashtun or Punjabi? But what would you, I think it depends on how you phrase it. What have you practically done that has created impact? So, like I said, anything that you've done that has created impact in the community. So that is your level of uniqueness. I always say take the lens of, okay, this is the impact I created around me in my neighborhood, wider community, and then, you know, at mass. So if you can justify that through a broader impact, scalable impact, that would be that would be a very good example. Excuse me. And the last one is storytelling. So it's all about your story. What is the key message that you want to communicate in your story? What is the narrative that you want to share? Okay. There are a few essentials. Be very specific. So specificity is very important because some of the examples you might have realized when I talked about the examples, I asked for specific cases and then linking that to impact. How is it relevant to the course or to yourself or to the university? That is again very, very important. Then, of course, we have passion. Are you passionate about it? And how do you translate passion in your essays? And then an understanding of the problems, like with the autism example, you probably saw, I understood the problem of my country. I understood the challenge of the community. This is a widespread um, disability that was there, but there was no awareness. So this is it shows your understanding of the market and the community that you live in. And how can you help? So if it's Fulbright specific, you're applying for Fulbright, then it has to be, okay, when I come back, how will I, whatever I've learned, whatever I've learned or whatever I'm doing there, I can share that with my peers there and then gather more learnings, gather more experience, bring it back and you know, use that to further help my community. Even if, let's say, it's not Fulbright, you can still use that lens. And that could be something that would make your application more weightier. So I'm going to pause, see if there are any comments, any questions on this, any thoughts. Okay, so how do we start the introduction part? How do we write if I am, then it will be more generic, isn't it? So what makes this? So we'll get to that. We'll get to how you write paragraphs essentially. So there's no set rule. Some people will start with an example. Some people will start generically mentioning a country specific problem. I'll give you examples of this as we progress. How do you apply this while how do we apply it's the same for an MBA. So there's no with an MBA, of course, the program, depending on what you're doing your MBA in, whether that's finance, that's marketing, what specific field, it'll be more tailored to that field. But the crux of it does not really change. Yes, even if it's chemistry, you can apply on it as well. Whatever the field is, this doesn't change. It's just this. So this is a recipe, a structure that is what it is. And then within the university and the structure that I'm giving you, you will add in the program, whether it's chemistry, whether that's finance, whether that's accounting, whether that's MBA. Khadija has a question, where do we get info about the universities? Just Google it, find the websites, and you should use the website to get the information and use ChatGPT as well. There's so many AI tools, ChatGPT, Gemini, which are available for free that you should use in your research. From an alumni point of view, examples of work can be done after return, besides awareness campaigns, seminars, community works, etc. Like usually alumni do. Can you suggest anything new and unique, an idea out of the box? Sorry, I didn't get the question. From an alumni point of view, examples of work that can be done after return. It depends on what your field is, Rabia. So if you're, for instance, I know someone whose field was digital marketing. She came back and she started a consulting organization where she was helping small and medium-sized enterprises with digital marketing. So there are many things you can do. It doesn't need to be just awareness or community work, but when you come back, it's the actual work. You can identify a gap that is available in your country at the moment, that when you go back, when you go to your program, your degree, you learn and you bring that skill back. You can always say, I'm very much interested in learning from my peers who bring on, international experience, looking at use cases or specific examples that I've seen internationally, and then applying them in a Pakistani nuances context. But it will, of course, depend on what your program is, what the challenge is, and then how do you apply that. So this is a structure, but you'll have to tailor it based on your specific degree and your specific objectives. Can we sort out help from using AI? Not in writing the essay, but of course in research. I don't think anyone would discourage you in taking help when you're doing your research. All right. And yes, I will give you a tip. If you're writing your whole essay through AI, that when you're reading it, anyone who has experience, and I'm sure universities are pros at it, they would be able to tell that the essay is written by an AI tool. So you just need to be a bit careful there. But for research, I don't think there's an issue. Okay, how do we stand out? Discuss influences, inspirations in your development as a research, if it's research focused. This is specifically for people going for research or academic focused degrees. Is there anything that was a turning point? So a lot of people will ask me, I wanted to start off with my program was in medical sciences and then I moved to art. So how do I phrase it? So I always say, what is the turning point? Can you make it into a story? Was there a point where you said, okay, I need to move here? Was there an inspiration? Was there a story? And then you connect that. Another important one, if you mention a researcher, professor who's inspired you, so not just for throwing in a name, who's genuinely inspired you or made you feel passionate about a particular university, the work they do. So that is again an important one. Convey your understanding of the subject matter, fluency in the course, it's very important. This comes with detailed research. So when you write it down on paper, it flows very naturally and it doesn't come across as you trying to force it. But because your understanding is great, it'll flow naturally. Explain how all of the experiences that I mentioned are related to your current interests, your degree, and how you foresee your career post the completion of the degree. All right. Any more questions on this before we move on to the next slide? Romessa has a question. Can you please give examples for someone who's applying from a medical healthcare background? Specifically, what can make our SAP stand out? So I think you can give examples of your practical experience or a vision of what you want to do with your medical healthcare degree. Do you want to start your own hospital eventually? Do you want to help? Do you want to bring new innovative healthcare strategies back in Pakistan and procedures? Is there any work that you did that inspired you? Is there any internship, anything that you did that was inspiring in any way or form? And you can sort of start thinking around that. Mohammed Huzafa says, can we improve fluency and language using AI chatbots? Yes, you can take their help in writing. Just make sure that you're not copy pasting anything. AI's purpose is for you to get support, but you need to do the work because anything that is generated by AI you can very easily tell. Okay, Falak says, wanted to ask, having a gap year, does it affect any chance of admission? I don't think so. People have gap years all the time, whether that's for work, whether that's for something else. I took a gap year as well. So there is no concern. It's just, what did you do with that gap year? So there has to be a story around that as well. Were you working? Were you doing community development? It could also be a personal struggle. It could also be a challenge. So these things, especially, in this environment, I think universities and workplaces, everyone is more empathetic now. So I think we talked about it 1 to 2 pages, Farwa, with 1 inch margins, and it's around 750 words. But you must check this formally if there is any guidance given on the university websites, reach out to the departments and also reach out to alumni just to get their thought, but this is the rough guidance. All right. Then we have a point. I'm in my 5th semester, BS English. Can I get scholarship during graduation? Sorry, I didn't understand this question. What do you mean, are you talking about Fulbright? Are you talking about university? Can you elaborate on this? And then I'll be happy to answer. So in terms of this is like a nice mix that I talk about when you're looking at your SOP. So there is culture, ethnicity, there's belief, tradition, diversity. You have to have like a full view of how you're thinking about when you're crafting your essay. So the different elements of that, these are things that can make you unique. I always say stay away from 2 things when you're writing your essays. One is politics and the other is religion. So you don't want to write that because you don't know who's on the other side, what their views are. You don't want that to negatively impact you. This is just a rule of thumb. So before we move on to the next slide, Khadija just clarified. So you're in the university. Are you saying when you apply for a program, can you get a scholarship? Is that your question? Yes, you can ask for, so there are 2 parts to that. There's financial aid. There are, of course, scholarships like Fulbright. There are other scholarships that universities add. There's a financial aid element as well. There's merit-based scholarships. So yes, you can apply. When you're applying, you'll have to check with the university of what their policies around scholarships are if they're university owned. And then, of course, there are other external programs that we just talked about. Okay. Perfect. Now we talk about personal anecdotes. To a point, we had a question at the start which said, how do we start off with the essay? So a lot of people love starting off with personal anecdotes. They're usually around common experiences, member of an underrepresented population, first one to go to college. There's a specific inspiration that you had, you experience, your current interest. This is a tricky one. So I always say go with this if you're 100% confident. Because in a lot of essays, I was also on the panel for Fulbright, I think back in 2015. That was right after I came back. And a lot of essays that I read back in the day from Pakistan were all the essays seemed similar, where everybody mentioned, I'm the first one from my family to go for education or to be applying abroad or to get schooling or there are a lot of hardships that I faced. Now, because I read so much of that, it sort of seemed to lose that uniqueness. So even if you're mentioning that, I would say two things. One, keep it positive. They want to view you as someone who was dealt a tough hand, but was very resilient and rose out of those difficulties. So make sure the tone is very positive if you're going down that route. And there's something again there that's differentiating. Now, I can't really tell because it depends from story to story, but let's not have a very cookie cutter example here, like I mentioned. So there's another question that we have. My background's from rural area and I can't get high score from my metric and FSC degree. What do you say about this? So, Kasim, if I understand this correctly, you didn't get really good scores, and now that's a challenge for you as you're applying for universities. What if I've understood this correctly? I would just say, look at the standardized test, double down, work really hard, try to get really good scores there. And then when you're in your essay, you can, okay, so then what is the question if you are doing MS chemistry? I didn't understand, sorry. Okay, well, let Qasim type the question, and then we can come back to that. So coming back to the personal anecdotes, like I mentioned, just make sure it is unique and it is not a cookie cutter with the 3 points that I mentioned. There has to be something unique and it depends from person to person. So how are you a fit? This is an important one. What attracts you to the program? Are there any skills that you have for the program? If you're going for a program, let's say in chemistry, what have you done that makes you suitable for this program? Are there any professors that you're particularly interested in working with? In PhD specifically, it is very, very common to list this because there's more research focused. And then you can, include maybe a line or two that talks about their research that has motivated you, that has inspired you, that just shows that you understand the program really, really well. So how are you a fit is very, very important. Qasim, I'm waiting for you on the chat for the question. And if there are any other questions, also, guys, keep them coming. Any comments? And now for the fun part. This is where I would want now in the last 10 minutes of our session, I want you to give me your answers here. Before that, we have a question on the chat, and then we'll come back to this. Meanwhile, the rest of you, I would love for you to read this and then let me know if there's anything wrong with this. Okay, so Tahir says, if I have an area in nuclear energy, how can I use that to benefit the society, particularly if my research area is hardcore research in thermal hydraulics? Like in Pakistan, the government is the sole stakeholder, and talking about creating an impact may seem very over the top, if not realistic. So even if it's over the top and it's unrealistic, that's where it's because see, Tahir, this is your field. You know your field best. I can only tell you from a perspective of how to phrase and how to make the essay, but the content needs to come from you. So if you're doing nuclear energy and there's nothing that you can benefit about, you cannot benefit Pakistan, there must be some reason why you're doing this, right? You might have thought of some future, um, something positive you can add to the community. So I want you to think about that more. I want you to do your research, understand that on a deep level, and then come up with an answer of how you can impact. Even if there are challenges, maybe you're the one who is that change agent that the country needs. All right, Ramessa says, okay, she's already there. Amazing. So we have a paragraph. It says, the world of computers. I'm going to read it and then guys start giving me your answers on what's wrong. The world of computers is growing at an unrecordable rate every day. Computers are the most influential tools in our lives, they are present and future. In my opinion, nothing on the planet can measure the exponential growth and excitement in the computing industry, an industry which I want to be part of, particularly software engineering. Okay, so what's wrong? Very generic. I love that. It is super, super generic. The paragraphs seem to be yes, and there's nothing new. It is just something that is general. If you're starting off with this, I don't even, after reading that, I don't even recall what was written. So it didn't capture my or your attention. All right, third paragraph. Other courses I'm currently studying are mathematics and accountancy. Maths is also very important to my selected career. It's a universal language used in by everything and is very involved with computers. I enjoy number work. So an obvious choice was accountancy. Although I find this subject less challenging than others, it's still interesting and fun. But it doesn't grip me like computing and is not an immediate career choice, which I want to be a part of, particularly software engineering. All right. Uh, so what do you guys think what do you think about the third paragraph? Yeah, it's a bit irrelevant, very generic, so I'm showing you when we were discussing what you want to not do, or the examples that are generic or that do not capture your attention. So yes, it's a bit irrelevant. All right, fifth paragraph, and I'll come back. And I see there are questions on the chat. I'll come back to that, but let's finish this as well. So this is something that you do not do, which doesn't show uniqueness. So guys, I'm going to read this and then tell me what you think. My hobbies include football, going out to the cinema, and the odd club or pub. This is an example that it's more European. But still gets the point across. My PC and the most expensive of all. I also like to swim. I find it quite relaxing and it is good exercise. I would love to eat out. Going out for meals with friends is unrivaled by almost any social gathering, including clubs and pubs. I love sitting around a table, talking, joking with my friends while drinking and eating. It's something I try and do at least once a month. Friends are very important to me and I try to be the best friend I can. Is this unique? Is there something that's grabbed your attention about this person? There's nothing. It's very general. There's no, like I said, we talked about hobbies. So yes, you guys are getting it absolutely. There's nothing unique here. We want to focus on more unique qualities. All right, great. There are a few messages I am going to go and answer on the chat. So Sadia says, if I'm applying for 3 to 6 month internship abroad during my bachelor's and they require an SOP, please guide me. So it depends on what the program is, what is required in the internship, but you can still apply the same policies. Why you want to go, what makes you a good fit, what would you contribute? So the pattern would be the same. Now, if you're going for an internship, you would see what are those qualities that the internship would value or require in the person that they want as a fit for the internship. So for all of this, the recipe mix is the same. The process is the same. You just want to fit in whatever example that you're going for. Okay. Would a master's in education, administrative, or public policy be appropriate for someone with 10 years of experience in teaching and academic administration at Pakistani universities? Yes. Yes, of course. The experience is quite relevant. You just need to make a nice story, just make sure that you're able to highlight your achievements correctly. All right. Now, sorry, before we go on, any other questions, anything that I can support you with? We talked about a strategy. We talked about how we want to write. So the first thing is select the program, do the research, select shortlist universities. There are a few tools. You have your research, you have your AI tools, you have your alumni. You look at the programs, the professors, the research, and then you start building it together. Then on top of that, you have your unique qualities. You see what those unique qualities are, how do you embed that, and then comes storytelling. So this is what we need to do. We talked about the requirements. And I think the last point is just make sure that it is very true, very authentic. You know your field more than anyone. So I can give you the crux, but I can talk mainly about my field. For your field, you guys are the expert. Can you explain a bit about the SOP structure? How many? It's about 5 paragraphs. And the flow is, again, either you start with an anecdote or you start with, I don't like to sort of give like a cookie cutter example, but 5 paragraphs. Start off with an introduction, build on in the first 2 paragraphs about your experience, about your past, how this is suiting with the current program, degree, and all your research. And maybe in the 4th paragraph, you talk about something, your volunteer work, other things that tie in nicely. And in the 5th paragraph is sort of your conclusion. I don't believe in sample SOPs because in a lot of cases, students get very much engrossed into it. So you probably saw, I gave you examples of what not to do. If I give you examples of what to do, people would just try to replicate that and create like similar SOPs. But that's what I want you not to do because I want the SOPs to be unique to you, to your program. And that is something that you guys are going to be an expert at. So I would suggest use this recipe and build your own recipe. Any other questions or any other thoughts? Yeah, that's a good advice. Don't copy your CV in your recipe. Can we bring out a belief? Can we bring out a belief with a positive vision that is something religious but actually helps the community towards a culture? What belief would that be, Rabia? Can you give me more example? Cultural union exchange for regional empowerment. Such topics are unsupported and considered controversial. I would stay away from anything that's controversial. I would not go in specifically in the current environment that we're living in. I would stay away from it. So your short and long-term goals will depend on your degree, your programs, and you have to define them. So short-term and long-term goals. So there's always short, medium, and long-term goals. But that depends on you. What are your goals? I would actually put the question on you. Anything else? I think we're in the last few minutes. What about talking about religion and faith-based programs? So you mean you're going for religious studies? If that's your degree, then it's slightly different. Just don't have an opinion. Specifically, keep it more generic. All right. Any more questions? Because I have a very interesting quote towards the end that I want you to take away, which is this. So it says, I'm obsessed with giving the audience something that they don't see coming. That is what your SOP should be. Everything that we discussed today, this culminates it. Thank you so much for your wonderful words. Falak had a question. Can writing research thesis help to increase our chance of admission? You'll have to check with the university and the program. How about talking about religion? Okay, we talked about that. So yes, this you'll have to check with your particular program. What would be a safe GRE score for education, leadership, and public policy? You'll have to check at your university. Universities have, each university and each cutoff for admissions. Even if they don't have that, you can ask the program advisors of what was the cutoff last year. So that'll give you an idea. Tips for someone having degree in communications media, working in government sector and interested in areas of development communication. Sorry, Farah, what is the question? Any chances for a session that guides us through application process and GRE prep? That I will leave to Education USA. So this question is for them. Maybe they can answer that towards the end. I'm sure there are going to be many programs that are done. You're very welcome, Sadia. Do we have separate IELTS and GRE requirements for scholarships and master programs? Yeah, there are requirements, but it depends on the university specifically. Daniel says suggest would be preferably appear in GRE at the time of application or after that. This depends. If you're prepared for the GRE, if you've already prepared for the GRE, then you can take the GRE, because what happens then is that, God forbid, you have a cushion or insurance policy. If the score is not what you're hoping for, you can always retake it. For all So any specific tips for communication media grads? I think for everybody, the tips is research, know your field really well, know what you want to do, and make your story unique. You build your story, you narrate your story. All right. If there are no further questions, we still have 2 minutes. If there are any questions, you can shoot. If there are no further questions, I'll pass it back to Education USA. I had a wonderful time with this session with you guys. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best. May you be successful in whatever goals you have, and may Allah make it easier for you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ayesha Aleem. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This brings us to the end of the session. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.